Hello and welcome to the Think Dad podcast, a podcast all about engaging with young dads. My name's Robert Orton.
And my name is Jordan Richardson, and we both work for North East Young Dads and Lads, working with other young dads and their families.
In this series of podcasts, we'll be interviewing a variety of professionals, asking questions about fatherhood engagement and best practice around working with young dads and their families. Let's get into this episode.
Hi Robert, thank you. Yeah, I'm Angela Ward. I'm a family nurse supervisor in Sunderland. I look after a team of 8 family nurses where we work with young families, and a lot of our clients come directly from midwifery, young women who are 19 and under, and part of our aim would be obviously to include fathers where possible.
That's great. Thanks very much. Thank you. All right, we're just going to jump straight into the first question. Why do you think it is important to support young dads?
Well, I would obviously, say why is it, not important? And I think, young dads play such an important role towards, the child's development, working towards having a sort of functional, healthy family. And I think equally, as there's a lot of focus on young mums, we want part of that focus where we do have access to young dads to support them just as equally.
Yeah, I completely agree. Having that equal sort of mentality, I think, especially when say you come to appointments together as a family and things like that, having equal attention and support would definitely benefit both the mother and the father as well, going through that process. That's great, thank you. So what does or could good support look like for young dads? So just give sort of like an example from your work.
So I think for us, working with anybody, it's about relationships and really sort of building that relationship to understand their needs, their values and aspirations, and supporting people to feel understood in their journey being a parent. And I think some good examples obviously would be where I probably would have a number because, my journey in FNP, and I would say a Family Nurse Partnership is quite unique when we started off where, although we know the system is set up to have this initial focus on the mum, but we always, dad's materials, it was always trying to have that be thoughtful for dad. So that was nice. So the programme almost sort of guided the nurses towards, right, it's about dads as well and involving dads because we knew dads were, often missed. But it's about if there's a dad there, trying to invite them in. We know they can be hesitant, sit on the fringe. It's about looking for that opportunity to involve dad because, even the young girl may think, oh, well, if he's at college, if he's at home or, it's just where can we create that opportunity? And I think that's what would be a good example is really going above and beyond to, acknowledge the father within that family and circle and have a look at sort of where the support can be offered and then gradually building that relationship with him. So then, once that relationship is developed, then hopefully be a sense of trust. So that's when a dad is more likely to be able to feel able to be included and chat and maybe disclose some of his needs and his thoughts in a safe space, really. And I would say the other side of that is, if there's a dad there and he's accessible, fantastic. But we've really got to be mindful of the dad too, where the relationship's fractured and they're not getting on. And I would say mum becomes very much the gatekeeper, depending on her feelings. And I think, what the family nurse can do can open up conversations with the mum to be more thinking about the child's needs. and the long-term relationship with the dad and what it might mean. And I would say an example of that I wrote with the family where, you know, she was adamant every time he put a foot wrong, she was going to block him. He, you know, can't see the baby, and you know, carefully, you know, using sort of really, you know, the communication skills, because it's about being respectful and being able to explore and use those open questions with mum. And normally, if the nurse has got a relationship, she can, you know, put questions to the mum and sort of really sort of think of things from the child's perspective. And we did, and this girl rode along, you know, allowing contact. And what I did was suggested, look, why don't we have a, you know, ask him if I can text him. The other side was obviously we are good at making referrals to needles, so that's always. But he didn't really want to engage with anybody else. So I managed to text him, say hello, send him some information, and then I managed to get a visit at his house, and really reflect on his role and how things were going for him, and could I be helpful in any way? And I think that was sort of that's about being able to be flexible within my service and going a bit above and beyond and thinking differently.
So really it's all about trying to authentically engage with the young fathers by identifying the best ways to engage with them, you know. And like you said, it's going to be different. It's going to be different every scenario. You're going to have different cases. You're going to have different reactions from people. And I think it's just having that mindset, isn't it, of how to authentically engage with them, which we'll kind of jump into that in the next question, actually. But those are some really great examples. Thank you. So in your work again, what challenges do you face in engaging, supporting, or including young dads? Now, I know you've already given some examples of that. But is there anything in particular that could kind of stood out for you during the entire time you've been within FNP? Yeah.
I must admit, you know, often FNP is in a unique position that we, because of the length of the programme and the consistency and the time and contact, and I do know that it affords us the programme itself with supervision, with the focus on family, think, you know, a voice of the child. I think it affords us, but that's my service. So, and even within my service, there's challenges. Go beyond the wider service, and, you know, really everything is geared to the woman and the child. And dad's is almost second fiddle, and that is not sort of being disrespectful to other services. Say, for example, a midwife who's just in a clinic, she's got 15 women, you know what, 10, 15-minute appointments. Her focus is, right, check this woman, check her blood pressure, check her bloods, and, you know, so it's almost the way, the pathways of those services, how it's changed is geared. So that's a massive hurdle. Now, that's not to say, you know, it shouldn't. A midwife is visiting a home after you know, when baby's born. It's about approach, isn't it? It's about thinking differently. Where can we sort of build this approach and sort of invite fathers to appointments? Ask, you know, maybe sometimes just asking them. I think sometimes a big challenge we face is relationship difficulties, and when the woman becomes the gatekeeper of that relationship with the child, or we're just, you know, we're really struggling with access to dad, because it is about being able to build that relationship, to try and, you know, it's very difficult to get sort of direct engagement without any relationship building.
So when you say gatekeeper, do you in what sense do you mean by that? Do you mean by so if this particular relationship was
so if the relationship's fractured,
there was separate and you couldn't get in touch with dad, for example, and any appointments that came up were just with mother and baby. If you've sort of established that the fact that father is still in touch and very much a part of that child's life, have you ever had examples where, in terms of the gatekeeping phrase you're using, is it more so that the control's all in mother's side and she
decides
everything?
So if she would say, for example, if she, if the relationship's fractured and they're not getting along, it's that, push, really ostracizing the father. I mean, equally, we can have fathers that, then disengage from the responsibility and, decide that they can go off and fix their own lives and leave the mum. So it's when really relationship challenges can be a big, play a major part in, how we can sort of facilitate, some work and thinking about the child's needs and thinking about, what healthy relationships look like. But, obviously that doesn't mean we don't face those challenges, and we do try and sort of work with mum to try and think differently and think more long term.
So with I know I'm kind of jumping in with
no
you from the same question, but so it's very much about the early intervention, really, isn't it? About like sort of identifying if that relationship is fractured, having that mindset of just asking like as early as possible the right questions. Where's dad? What's he up to? Is he actively involved? That sort of thing, and just kind of getting a broader picture of where everyone's at. And the earlier the better, really. It's basically what it should be like. Yeah.
And like I say, that's why we know a part of our service it does that. When we talk about life history calendar, we talk about we do sort of what we call key issues that sort of try and because we've got the time, it's not a quick, often other services will be sort of quick in, like a midwifery would use what's called a vulnerability assessment tool. It's called a VAP, and sometimes they're doing it over the phone. Is dad there? Is dad involved? Does dad work? Has dad got any other children? And it's just like closed questions. So there's no relationship building, is there? Or like, and really there, in one sense, what they're doing is the narrative of young men, in a sense, it builds on that narrative of young men being a risk. And I think that sits, isn't it? It's like they've got this young woman coming in, pregnant, and right, who's there, who's involved, who's the risks? Where in FNP, we can go out, meet the families more face to face. We can take time learning about, and asking those questions, rightly so. It's about asking those open questions and trying to build a picture, build a relationship.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'd recently found out about was the health visitors and midwives. They don't get a lot of time, do they, when they come in? So they've got kind of like goals to meet, and it's heavily directed towards mother and baby, just making sure they're all right, I guess, which is fine. Yeah. But having that extra time, especially with the kind of work you do to FNP and things like that, you can definitely, I can certainly see that you can build a stronger relationship from the bottom, just purely because you've got more time as well, and having that certain mindset too. So that's great. Thank you. So yeah, we'll just move on to the final question, and you might have already mentioned a few things that can kind of tailor to this question, which is fine. But we'll go through it anyway. So what are your 3 top tips for other organisations who want to better support young dads?
I think as an organisation to support young dads, I think there should be possibly some shared learning and training, because in that there could be that much more sort of time to have the element to think about young fathers' needs acknowledge the barriers, the challenges. And then that means an organisation could have a lot more time to think about what challenges we face, but then even maybe, what small changes can we make? I think possibly if there's an organisation sort of what material, again, from that training could then come sort of like what materials and what could organically grow out of seeing a need. But I think one of the basic ones for, again, what should come out of the training is being able to communicate with young fathers and ask them. It's not sometimes difficult to just ask, where's dad? And be lovely to meet dad and how's he feeling? And
while
probably more than 3 tips there.
No, that's fine. There's a common occurrence, though, isn't it? It's always, and this is a lot of it's, a lot of this is tied to the work that we're currently doing now, anyway, in terms of the research that's ongoing. And the prime example is that authentic engagement. That how do you do it? Why you should do it? What the outcome of that is going to be if you do it right. But I think just implementing that aspect of it within that work, because during this process we're talking to different professionals in their own right, in their own experiences, in their own perspectives. So you've got something completely different to some of the conversations I've already had in the past, based on these same questions. And it's interesting how different they all are. Which is why we're doing it. So that's wonderful, Angela.
You have been listening to the DigiDAD podcast with Jordan Richardson
and Robert Orton. This podcast has been produced by NHS Cumbria Northumberland Tyne and Wear, the North East Young Dads and Lads, and the University of Lincoln. If you'd like to find out more about our work, please visit the North East Young Dads and Lads website at www.neydl.uk or our bespoke e-learning platform at www.digidad.uk. That's www.digidad.uk.
Until next time, thank you for listening.